For too long, women have not been heard or believed.
You told the world that time's up on violence.
1 out of every 5 women will be sexually assaulted and raped before she reaches the age of 18.
It's 2018 and I've realized that nobody is safe long as she is alive. And every friend that I know has a story like mine.
You think that just because I'm a woman, I'm incapable of making my own choices?
It doesn't matter what you think.
Don't I as a woman deserve to even have an opinion? Don't you?
You have no idea what it is to be a woman.
So I asked myself, what can I say about being a woman?
Hi, my name is DAmini and this is Her. Women have a big impact on our lives, especially as we're growing up. They're our mothers, our grandmothers, our sisters, our aunts, our cousins, our partners, and so on. Women have the power to create nations. They help shape the world, our societies, and communities. Women are amazing. They are innovators, trailblazers, creators, and dreamers. In this series, Her, I will interview a dozen inspiring and influential women from different backgrounds. Are you ready to meet her? Let's go! So who is Rebecca Thomas?
That's always a very good question. It's quite, it could be very short, it could be very broad of an answer, but I am Rebecca Thomas. I am a writer. I am somebody who works with students. I'm the daughter of a residential school survivor. I'm Ilmu of the Mi'kmaq Nation, and I am honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me to speak. This is going to be a wonderful conversation.
What is the most defining moment in your life as a girl, and what do you think are some of the defining moments of a girl's life in general?
I think for me, I think there's 2 answers for that. I think one is defining in a positive and one defining in a negative, I think. So for me, one of the most defining moments for me becoming, this kind of very strong woman was seeing for the very first time an Indigenous woman holding space and captivating, a group of people. I saw that and I go, wow, like I want to be like that. And I think that that's something that impacted me really greatly. And then a really defining moment as well is being a woman and being told, and it's going to sound very trite, I think, in the moment, but I remember this very distinctly. And it was when my first ever boyfriend in high school broke up with me. And he told his friends that he broke up with me because I was annoying. And I thought to myself, excuse me? And a lot of it was because I spoke up, or I said, I don't want to do that. Or I called him and I want to talk to him on the phone. And I didn't necessarily fit around his life, that I wanted space and I wanted attention. And that the fact that he broke up with me and said that I was annoying. And I think that that's a dismissive word that gets put out to women. She's annoying, she's crazy. All of those sorts of things are often used to kind of shut women down for wanting space, to wanting to be seen and heard and appreciated. And that was a really defining thing for me too, in a really negative way. And for a long time, I tried to make myself smaller or more appeasing or likable, right? Until I just didn't want to do that anymore. So I stopped. And I have felt so much better since.
I really connect with that, because I feel like a lot of girls my age struggle with that, especially now as we're going to high school and as we're in middle school, and relationships with other people are becoming bigger things. A lot of those things are happening around. It's sad to watch.
Yeah, and I think that we internalize it and we take it on so much as young women. In order to be listened to or to have worth or to do something, we must be well liked. And I found that that was something that held me back for a really long time. And it makes me sad when I see young women feel that same pain that I did. I mean, that was many years ago. We're going on almost 20 years ago that happened to me. And to see it repeat itself in young women today is really tragic. And so I guess for that, I would say, be annoying. Yeah. Just be annoying, be yourself, right? Yeah. And I think that that's really important that young women start doing that younger and younger, you know?
I agree. How have women around you influenced your life?
I think of my mom. I don't talk a lot about my mom. She was, a very private lady. She was quite introverted, but she was such a strong lady. She was so smart. She was a doctor. And I remember when I was in family studies in high school, and we were getting these stats about women in New Brunswick and how much money they made. And it was something very shocking. I don't know the stat exactly, but it was something like 8 in 100 women made above the poverty line at that time. And that would have been around like 2001, 2002. And I was absolutely shocked. And I came home and I said, Mom, did you know? And I gave her the stat, and she looks at me and she kind of takes a sip of her coffee, and then she's very deadpan and she goes, I make more than most men. And it was just this like unapologetically, like, I am smart, I make the money, I am, I tell people what to do, because she was also in the Army. She was a captain in the Army. And so I just think about this incredibly strong woman, and that really influenced my world. Because as a kid, my mom worked and my stepdad stayed home, and I thought that's how it was. So my world was shook when I went out and I found out that that was not regular. So I had a really strong female influence from a very young age.
That's really badass.
Yeah, she was. She's such a badass lady. She had so many good one-liners. I think about them. She was just an incredible lady.
It's really important for young girls to have good female role model. Mm-hmm. What do you think the world's view of women is now, and how do you think it's evolved over time?
I think that it can be a lot of the same. I still think that there's an expectation on women to be a certain way, but I think that there are more women who are willing to push back against that, and women are, supporting other women in that. So, even today, I made a joke about how, me and my husband will shovel our neighbor's driveway. And he went out and he snowblowed a bunch of driveways, and he didn't snowblow our driveway. And I was like, the audacity, making a joke. And every negative comment that I got was from a man saying, well, I didn't know it was transactional. I didn't know good deeds were transactional, right? And I was just thinking to myself, it's like, and then somebody else piped in and says, as a man, I've never been told how I was wrong because I was frustrated about a snowstorm, or shoveling a driveway. So I think we see a lot of that's the same, but all the overwhelming support that, I get is also from women to just kind of take up space and just be like, well, stay mad. Fine, stay mad. You don't like my tweet. You don't like that somebody didn't shovel my driveway and I complained about it, whatever. So I think it is more of the same, but I do think that a lot more people feel comfortable to speak up and say, well, stay mad. I don't care about that, and I think that's changed. And I really love that. It's not as shocking when a woman speaks out. And if it is shocking, good.
Yeah.
Be shocked, stay mad, as I said, right? So I think that's changed a bit, which has been nice.
Mm-hmm. What do you think can be done to address a lot of the gender stereotypes that are projected on women these days?
Yeah, I think that we should let women just be, right? So that's the thing. I have a poem where I talk about, it's called Nothing Special, and it's just a woman, for a woman to do what she wants to do and not have it be special, that is the future that I want. Because right now, if a woman does something that's counter stereotype, right, is really into, I don't know, mechanics or whatever, then she's fulfilling this kind of expectation to be one of the boys. So she's being gendered regardless, right? And that if a woman wants to wear pink and really enjoys cooking and cleaning because it gives her a sense of fulfillment, then all of a sudden she's falling to a stereotype. Whether or not she gets joy out of that is irrelevant. She's now failing women because she's not pushing back against a stereotype. And so I think the best way to let stereotypes be is just to let women be. right? So for me, I love cleaning and cooking because it gives me a sense of accomplishment, and it also brings control into my world when I'm feeling a little nervous or anxious or out of control, right? But I really dislike the color pink, and I really love wearing boots and pants, and I wore a suit to my brother-in-law's wedding, right? So like, I think that just let me do the things that find me joy, and to be very frank, I suppose, just leave me alone.
Why do you think it's important to celebrate Women's Day?
I think it's important to celebrate, International Women's Day, because I think it's really important to highlight the diversity within women, and that all women are really strong in where they've come from, but not all women have had the same experience. And some women are fighting harder for recognition as to who they are. And I think it's really important to draw attention to that and to recognize that women are not a monolith, right? Sitting here in this conversation, we are two women who are coming from vastly different backgrounds in our life experiences, right? I think about how many trans women get excluded from these conversations because people don't still question, their femininity. I think that when we look at the celebrating women, we kind of want to clump us all together and say, you are not men, and therefore we will acknowledge that. I think it's important to acknowledge and celebrate women, but also recognize that every woman's journey is going to be very different, and that there's a lot of privilege and marginalization that happens within the scope of womanliness or being a woman. And I don't think that gets enough conversation. And so it's important, I think, to continuously bring it up so that we can continuously have a conversation and tease out a lot of that stuff that goes unaddressed.
Mm-hmm. And what does the 2022 International Women's Day theme, Break the Bias, mean to you?
Oh, I mean, I think a lot of it is held in like the bit of my answer before, and that I think we have a bias towards a lot of different women. And I think we don't necessarily acknowledge the intersectionality and the biases that come within that, right? Whether it be white women taking up space from, women of color, Indigenous women, whether it's cis women excluding trans women from the conversation. I think that our biases within ourselves as women need to be looked at, as well as the overarching bias that many men have towards us. And so it's important to be really reflective and reflexive of that bias, within ourselves, within structures, and within systems of power. And that I often talk about it as like head work and heart work. And the head work is like learning the concepts and the academics of it, right? And the heart work is emotionally situating yourself with that new knowledge in mind, right? That's I think when I think about that, breaking that bias, because we all have biases, we do. But where do those biases lie, and who has the power within their bias?
I really like that analogy, head work and heart work. How can we include more racialized women in leadership?
Hire them. Like that's like hire them, right? I think so much when they talk about, is it a good team fit? Is it, should we restrict hiring pools? And then you'll get that conversation saying, well, I think it should go to the best candidate. And I said, well, that's your assumption that the best candidate's white, And so I think the big piece of it is just hire them, right? Partly because it's the right thing to do. And partly you have to recognize that even the ways in which we evaluate people for roles is based in a very colonial and racist structure. So the questions we ask and the expectations we hold and our biases of what women in leadership look like are rooted in that same old, patriarchal, like colonized view. And so we have to recognize that we may not be the best at evaluating roles for racialized women in leadership, because, and by we, I mean, the world in power, which is mostly white, which is mostly men, that they probably don't have the skill sets to properly evaluate, putting women in leadership, but they have the power to hire racialized women in leadership. So they just need to do it.
Yeah.
And then address their biases to break their bias, in that process or after the fact. Humility is a big thing for me. And I always tell people to say, be open to the possibility that you could be wrong.
What do you think allies can do to help achieve gender equity?
One is if you have power to share it. I saw this great little thing, on Instagram, they'll put a little quote, and they'll put some fancy background to it, and then that quote becomes viral, but often you don't necessarily know where it originated. But I saw one which was fabulous, and it said, representation without power is just tokenism, right? And so when you want to achieve that gender equity, you need to give power to that representation so that can continue on and be passed down, right? So I think of our allies who have power, to give that power to women, especially racialized women or Indigenous women or trans women in those spheres, and all those intersections. And I think it's really important to also, do that heart work. That's that inner work, right? So there's the outer work. There's also that inner work, because if you're deeply uncomfortable or you react really negatively all the time because of what you're being confronted with is different than what you would expect, then that's some inner work that you got to do as well. Like as my dad would say, like, child, you got to get right. And I think about that. Very simple, but it's true.
Yeah, it's definitely really important to leave the door open so that other women come through and have opportunity.
Absolutely. And tear down the barriers as best you can so that you might have been able to jump over all of those barriers. But that doesn't mean that the person behind you is going to be able to do it too. So you can't always just say, well, because I did it, you should be able to do it. You need to be constantly looking for where those barriers are and try to break them down while you're moving through. And I know that is such a monumental ask for the people who are the first ones in those roles. But I think that there is that responsibility to try your best while you're in those roles to do that.
What advice do you have for the next generation of amazing women?
Oh my goodness. Just truly be yourself, and don't stress so much about whether or not you're meeting the expectation of a gaze, right? Whether it be the male gaze or societal's gaze, because I think the moment we start trying to crumble or shift ourselves to those expectations, then we've let ourselves down. So, if you want to, wear pink and clean your house, or you want to, get involved in these kind of like underrepresented roles, or you just want to live a happy life as a woman or racialized woman or trans woman, that act of living your life and being happy is a form of resistance in of itself. And that was a huge piece of advice that I got given by a wonderful woman who was a mentor of mine when I worked for the province, that like just being happy and like not grinding yourself down to a huge extent, that's an act of protest too. And I think sometimes we might feel guilty about that. But when the world wants to see you fail, resting for a minute, that's a powerful statement. So I don't know, be yourself, be annoying, be emotional, rest, be happy, right? I think that's like, those things are incredibly powerful, because I think the world thinks that we have to earn those things or earn the right to those things. But I don't think we do. That those are yours unequivocally from the ground up. You get to choose those things. They're not to be earned. Letting go of that guilt.
Thank you so much for those words of wisdom. They'll be very appreciated by many girls who have similar experiences.
I hope so. I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to see these barriers and to tear them down. And if it means that I'm going to be this dramatic, emotional, like mess of a human being while I do really incredible things, to be very competent, because those are not mutually exclusive, then hopefully people who are like me will see a place that they fit as well.
Thank you so much for speaking to me today.
Thank you so much for having me. Mulalen, you do great work. I'm such a fan of yours. So
thank you.
I hope that you have a fabulous March, and happy International Women's Day to you, and happy every day to you, because you're a woman 365 days a year.
Hell yeah, it is. Showing the people what's up. Females gotta stick together. Number one untapped resource, women.
There she goes.
There are more of us than them.